that Mr. Regal competed for the IWGP Championship against Hashimoto. That must have been something.
So the first one was there was two matches that were singles matches that we had that I know of because they were both filmed. Again,
There's one in 95.
And then one in 96.
Yeah.
The one in 95, I believe I was the first British person to ever challenge for the IWGP Championship. That was a big deal to me, especially in a mid-20-year-old. There's a part in that match where you see me go off on somebody in the crowd. And if anybody's ever watched it, if they wonder why, it was either an American or a Canadian serviceman who was based over there, said something very derogatory towards Hashimoto. And because being in America is one thing, being in England is one thing. When you go to Japan and the history and you know what people have gone through to get into the wrestling job, I took that very seriously. I trained very hard for that match. I did a lot of things. That was that wasn't a play out thing to me. That wasn't just another day in the wrestling. That was an honor to me.
Sure.
Right. That I'd been put in that position. And I turned around and I started pointing at somebody because he called Hashimoto something that I'm not going to say on this podcast. But the rest of the match is pretty hard hitting and whatever else, because that was just the way it was. The second match we had, which is the one that most people haven't seen, well, most people who watch stuff, is the one from 96, was actually a WCW tour. I was in England at the time. 1996, I was in England at the time. And I was just there for a few weeks, and I did two different tours to Japan and then back again to England. I was spending a few weeks of the summer in England, and I wrestled some shows in England, and I wrestled a show in Germany against Tony Sinclair, a CWA show. I think I've mentioned that on this show before, because Tony filming at the ring at the end of I believe it was 15 3-minute rounds we did, something like that. I was the WCW TV champion at the time, and I went over, and the September, I believe it was September of 96, 96, I wrestled Hashimoto for the second time at the Corrigan Hall, which is a very famous wrestling venue in Japan. The second one is more memorable to me. The first one was incredible, but it's a bit of a blur.
It was part of a tournament, I think. It was a New Japan Pro Wrestling US All-Star Tournament.
The second one.
You were in the second round.
But the first one was such a blur of what am I doing? Again, the same thing we've talked about on here. What am I doing at mid-20s wrestling for the IWGP Championship?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. I used to work on a carnival.
And there you are.
And there I am. What am I doing here? I'm still a fan, and I'm going, what am I doing in this? Why am I here? It doesn't make sense. So when I hear, like Zach and Will and people doing that stuff now and actually become IWGP, I'm like, you have no idea. Well, yes, I think they do, but I don't know. No, they don't. They don't have what a thing that was in the 90s or the 80s. It was a big thing to be a part of anything like that. It was a huge thing, right? So, but the second match was still a huge thing. Well, again, this is only with long-time Japanese fans. And I didn't find this out till about 5 years ago, because I was at an Evolve show, and after the show, I went to Korean barbecue with Gabe Sapolsky and Sal, and they had a couple of Japanese friends of theirs with them. And they started talking about the match I had with Hashimoto in 96. And I went, all right, because again, it's just another day at work for me.
Right.
Apparently, and this is all down to Hashimoto, not me, I was the first person to ever kick out of both of his finishes in that match in 96. And all I remember of it is me having this match. I remember coming out and Ric Flair being on the bus. And as I got on the bus, Ric Flair went, that was an incredible match you just had, which was nice. I'm not one for praise or anything, but to hear Ric Flair say that is a big thing.
Oh, for sure.
Because I was main event on that show. There's another thing. I was main event on that show. Right? I'm just a journeyman bit player wrestler, but I was main event on that show because Hashimoto really liked me. And really, again, the following year, I was part of New Japan's team, which wasn't a usual thing for foreigners. It was us against the NWO. I was treated very differently than a lot of people there, which we talked about on the last episode. But Ric Flair had said that, but I never thought anything. It was just another night at work and another match. I went back to England and then I came back to America a week later or whatever. Because my wife was pregnant with my youngest son, who's now in this job. Bailey. And then these people started telling me, yeah, because, it's funny because, this is where my brain goes, and this is really embarrassing that I've got to even, Funaki.
Okay.
WWE Funaki.
Yes.
Funaki said that he told me once, he went, I was in the audience for that. He was a fan and was in the audience for me against, and he mentioned this, but it didn't click with me until we were just sat down, because when I'm at a wrestling show, my brain's going 1,000 miles an hour. So if you tell me something, I'm still thinking about. I was sat down having some food with some fans, and they said, "Oh yeah, you were the first person that it ever kicked out of Hashimoto's two finishes, the DDT and the Brainbuster." And I went, "Oh, I never thought about that." And I found out that is a fact since then. And I'm sure somebody will come up and say it wasn't, because it will be on a live event somewhere. But as far as I know, this is what I was told. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
But nonetheless, what an honor. I mean,
But that wasn't what I know. I just know that, to be honest, after the Brainbuster, I wished he hadn't said kick out, because I been having the neck that I had at the time that was hurting a lot, and that Brainbuster was right on top of your head with all your body weight. It's not a pleasant thing. I don't get
Brainbuster.
I don't get that move at all. It's one of them things that it's just, I've never done it. It's this far off crippling somebody for life.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not me to get
no
it.
More now.
Different discussion, and people still do it. I'm like, why? When you can do a regular suplex, most people don't know the difference. A regular vertical suplex, why you're even contemplating dropping somebody on their head, I don't know. But that's not for me to discuss now. And so, apparently, I was the first person to ever kick out of his DDT and his Brainbuster in that one match. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've been told. And that would all be down to him just taking a liking to me and the way I did my business and my style, and him letting me do that. So that is another thing that adds to my myth in Japan. And I think we've gone off. Unless you've got anything more, I think we've gone up enough.